Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's major domestic rival has resigned from the nation's emergency government over the handling of the war against Hamas. In a televised news conference, Benny Gantz said Netanyahu was preventing Israel from achieving, quote, true victory in the war, saying politics was getting in the way of strategic decisions. Let's bring in Joumanna Bercetche, our Middle East anchor, of course, Horizon's Middle East and Africa anchor. Joumanna, what does this mean then, ultimately, for Netanyahu?
Well, Benny Gantz made that announcement yesterday in a televised address, saying that he was quitting the coalition government. Now, this didn't come as a lot of a surprise, a big surprise. Back in May, he had issued an ultimatum to Netanyahu saying that he wanted to see a long-term plan for Gaza, and unless he committed to that plan, he would run the risk of actually leaving the government. So that announcement came over the weekend. The symbolism here is he, of course, was one of the more moderate members of the Netanyahu government, and while it doesn't mean that the government itself is going to fall apart, because Netanyahu will still have 64 seats in the Knesset alongside his coalition partners, what it does mean is that he will be more reliant on some of those more right-wing members of the government. One of them, the National Security Minister Ben Gvir, is actually pushing for a position on the war cabinet. He's one of the more hawkish members of the government as it stands, and has been adamant that Netanyahu should not be signing on to this Biden ceasefire proposal. And of course, this comes on the heel of this successful hostage operation over the weekend. They managed to retrieve 4 hostages from within Gaza, which was initially met with a lot of triumph and jubilation within Israel. But then, of course, it did emerge that the civilian cost was very high. The Hamas-run Palestinian Health Ministry saying that it had actually killed 270 Palestinians in the process of that operation, over 700 wounded. And it just underscores how heavy a cost these hostage operations actually have on the Palestinian lives. And many within Israel are saying that they're not fully supportive of these types of operations, especially as it could imperil the lives of the other hostages still on the ground. So very complex situation. And at this point, Netanyahu is still fighting for his political career.
And now, no doubt, all of this ties into the visit by Antony Blinken, of course, the U.S. Secretary of State, back in the region, and another furious round of diplomacy. So far, it has come to very little. You were saying, and you were pointing out that Benny Gantz supports this peace plan from Biden. What can we expect then, in terms of Blinken's ability to move the dial on this issue when he's in the region?
I think that is the big question here, because remember, it was only a week ago that Biden put out this 3-point peace plan, this ceasefire proposal, I should say, rather, and it became apparent in the next 24 to 48 hours that Israeli officials hadn't really signed on to that deal. And so irrespective of what happened this weekend, I think this is the U.S.'s once more another attempt to get Israel on board with the deal. But of course, given the turmoil of the weekend, given the political changes, the fact that Benny Gantz has left the government, and the fact that Netanyahu will have to rely more on some of his right-wing coalition partners, it does seem increasingly unlikely that this ceasefire truce can actually get across the line. But the Secretary of State will be meeting with the Egyptian President Sisi today, and then he will be traveling to Israel to meet with Netanyahu. He will also meet with the defense minister. The sticking point, as ever, and this is consistently the theme, Hamas are saying that they're not going to sign on to the deal unless Israel agrees to a full withdrawal of forces from Gaza. Israel is saying that they're not going to sign on to the deal unless they see a full destruction of Hamas. So still a lot of daylight between the two sides.